The ILO is the International Labour Organization. It's the oldest organization of the United Nations, 100 plus years old. And it's the only one that has the voice of workers, employers in its bodies, in the decision-making process, together with the governments of 187 countries.
When you go and shop, you enter a Zara shop or a Nike shop, and you turn yourself into an accomplice of crime against humanity. And that needs to come to an end.
This legislation, the forced labor legislation that was introduced at EU, is extremely crucial. It has to have a regional focus. It has to have a broad scope that covers all products. Doesn't matter whether it's solar or PVC or agriculture or garment.
But the truth is that as long as we don't pass this regulation, this instrument, this directive on due diligence also, because there is not only this trade instrument, as long as we don't pass it, then we are the trash bin of the US. We have seen the flux. When the US has passed the import ban, then the result is what? That companies importing products of forced labor are redirecting the products to Europe. So before being proud of ourselves and speaking about principles, values, and human rights, what we need to do is to give teeth to our words, which means be concrete. And that's the whole story about this instrument. And if you ask me, it will pass.
We need to revise the Union Custom Code. We need to make data transparent, and we need to be able to map the supply chains throughout from the beginning to the end.
And there is a money problem. And you can either have a very pragmatic or an ideologic approach, and we have a very pragmatic. We want it to change. So if it's money is the problem, then make it into a business case, because we firmly believe that sustainability and this change is a business opportunity as well.
Not forget that when it comes to the fundamental questions like how do we define forced labor indications, a company's responsibility, the answer exists. There are existing standards that define forced labor indicators, in particular the world-leading ILO standards. There are existing standards that define a business responsibilities in this field. The UN Guiding Principles, the OECD M&E guidelines, they're voluntary, therefore the implementation was incomplete. But the value lays in the fact that they provide us with clearly defined concepts, and we should build legislation on that.
It's not anti-business regulation or legislation. And even on the medium and long term, sometimes we have lobbies coming in this house, and I'm provocative enough to tell them that actually I'm working for them without them knowing it, because on the long term, the only way you can have a European production is if you have these kind of rules, if you have these kind of norms, if you have this kind of instrument and regulation.
So there has to be a set of measures looking at traceability, looking at what robust due diligence means, looking at remediation and what that means. And the way the forced labor regulation can do that is really sort of introducing perhaps a suspension and giving the opportunity for a correction, where companies involved in the supply chain are given an opportunity to really remediate and put back where the money should be going.
International companies, they're more than financially capable of finding out where they're sourcing from, and there are technologies out there available, so many technologies out there available, kudos to them, whoever invented, that can be used, and there are companies are using such tools to verify where they're sourcing from, where their raw materials are from. And oftentimes raw material level, it's where forced labor are rampant, that exists the most.
The due diligence should definitely be focusing a lot on remediation, because that's part of the process. The ban should have a component of remediation, but it cannot be the main central focus, because it's product-based, and the idea is just to prevent these products from being commercialized.
Making traceability and transparency mandatory in the CSDDD, but also supporting it with other complementary uniform amendments to the union's customs code is really critical in order to allow civil society to actually report where there's forced labour.
Poverty wages are the root cause, and that's right, but there's an even rooter cause, which is the economic model that we've been welcoming for as long as I'm alive, and a bit more time than that. And even though there's many people questioning this system, even the IMF and Financial Times are talking about the problems of inequality and questioning the economic system we have, there are others that are holding on to it.
Let's take the example of the fashion industry, which is an industry where there is a great power imbalance between brands and suppliers. So technically, what happens is that the brands, they can impose the terms of trade when they in their trade relations with suppliers. So take lead times, for example, which is the time between an order is placed and the products are supposed to be delivered. Because the brands, right, they want to keep on issuing new design, new collections, new items, so they are able to negotiate very short lead times. What are they supplier? What can the suppliers do? They don't want to lose the business because their life depends on that. They don't want to lose their clients, so they push their capacity to the maximum and even beyond. So they force the workers to do overtime, which is often not paid. They resort to illegal subcontracting, to other forms of informal working, and this is where forced labor happens.
If we know 40% is overproduction, and 4% of the global carbon footprint is overproduction, and very rightly said that only can be done on the shoulders of forced labor, because how else?
I know nothing about politics, but within 1 year I've learned everything is politics. Do women have the right to wear what they want? Is politics. Do children have the right to go to school? Is politics. Do we have a fair supply chain and a justice for what we consume? Is politics. So that's in our everyday life. It's in everything we do.